Into the speakeasy, let me think, the second college coach to be an in-studio guest, the
Okay.
first since the speakeasy,
Love it.
and the second guy from a recent trip to Pinnacle to be in here. Brandon Paulson was in here prior to this all being done, but Scott Green, assistant coach of the Army West Point, not at West Point, not at Army, Army West Point. That
Army
is the
West
full
Point
name.
Wrestling. That is correct. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
No, it's exciting to be here. If you haven't been here, you got to come check it out. It's a museum in here. Love it.
yeah, much to the behest of my wife sometimes, where I tell people that I don't collect stuff. I just kind of acquire it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lie. I collect stuff. I
Yeah.
mean,
No.
if you look, I mean, like I said, those of you that have seen this stuff in here before, if you're watching, if you're listening, you'll just have to use your imagination. I've got press credentials, awards, but I've also got weird stuff from the Buccaneers, the Angels. I got this pennant from the Minnesota Fighting Saints from 1972
Love
down
it.
here.
Yeah.
Got the custom bar that I built. So this was built specifically for this purpose. So Scott, we've
I'm
had
glad to be here then.
we've had
Yeah.
Corby and Josh in here from Mad Scouts, and we
Okay.
had Jason Fulmore from Southeast Wrestle. You're the third official guest, first
Okay.
college coach again. So
Perfect. Yeah.
we're just practice has started, but you're out in Minnesota. First things first.
Yeah.
Welcome to New Brighton, where you always know the weather. But what are you
I do.
what are you
I'm-
doing
I'm-
here?
I'm excited to be in New Brighton. I've seen the weather report going on a few years here now, and I'll be honest with you, I was expecting it to be a little colder. A little disappointing when I got off the plane yesterday. It was 20 degrees, 20 degrees warmer here than when I left New York. But Paulson and Lawrence assured me that if I hang around for a couple days, I might see snow. So
You might.
yeah.
Here's the thing. I remember when I moved here the first year was coming. I was going down to Brian. Actually, it was probably at this point 11 days from now, so it would be Halloween,
Mhm.
2008. Did I moved here in 8? Yeah, 2008. And I'm coming back from preseason nationals at the old barn.
Sure. Yep.
Keck was running it then. Shout out to the late Brian Keck. And I'm driving back, and I get to about to Albert Lee, and here comes snow. I'm like, what the heck is
Yeah,
this? I grew
no.
up in Virginia, never had a white Christmas.
Yeah.
Here I am. I'm gonna have a white Halloween. What gives? So part of that is now we get the great Twitter interactions, and now again proof that New Brighton does exist.
It
in
does
the Twitterverse.
indeed, yeah, for sure. If you're doubting that, if you think that it's a fictional place that JB's just tweeting the weather from, I can confirm I'm actually in New Brighton right now, and the weather report is accurate.
100% accurate. Well, we will have some rain today, so my
Okay.
contractors that are coming out back to fix my walkout, because again we have walkouts here. Basements are a thing in Minnesota. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how much they are in your part of New York where you grew up, but basements are a thing here.
Absolutely, no, I'm a basement guy. Everywhere that I've lived, Pennsylvania, New York, has had a basement, so we are well familiar with basements. But yeah, I'm here. Just kind of planting the flag a little bit, right? Just moved from high school to college coaching a few months ago. I'm excited to be back at the Division I level, and one of my jobs is to get out on the road and get into good wrestling rooms and talk with high school coaches, club coaches, and do the recruiting thing. So, what a better place to start? One of the first ones on the list was Pinnacle, where you walk in there and you see guys that have been on world teams. You see the quality of coaching in the room. It's a great place to start, and excited to be out here.
Yeah, one thing that's cool about Pinnacle is now it's its second location since I've been here. Their other place was in Shoreview, probably about 5 minutes the other direction. But you walk in, you see the flags
For sure.
of the schools. They're not all just sending people to the University of Minnesota. Like
Absolutely.
you see Paulson and Lawrence. They're Gophers, but they're sending kids. There's D1 guys all over that. I mean, and
Absolutely.
they're all over the country too. I remember a couple years ago. There's you get the Bucknell flag hanging up in there. Then you got South Dakota State. You got the Gophers. Then you got you got kids that are like Paxton Crease, for example, is going at St. Cloud State.
Yep.
So you get D2 kids, and it's like they're really farming guys out. Now, one thing about being a service academy is just because you're in New York doesn't mean you're stuck with the East Coast in New York. You are a national type of recruiting base, and what's the importance of going to a room like Pinnacle to where maybe kids in Minnesota may not be thinking military academy, or they may not be thinking Northeast.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's part of the reason that I'm at West Point, and part of my job there is to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and be able to get to some different places and tell people what it means to be a student athlete at the Service Academy, most specifically Army West Point. Certainly, it's the further away from you get to some of those things, the more you might have some preconceived conceptions of what those are, or what it means to be an athlete there. But I think educating people, educating young wrestlers, educating families and coaches what we can do, what we can provide, and what it means to serve is important. There's not one particular kid, and I was guilty of this in high school too. When I was coaching high school, I said, "Oh, I've got the perfect West Point kid for you," or "Oh, I've got the perfect Annapolis kid for you." And the reality is that's not true, right? There's as many different types of personalities, and the Army needs lots of different types of kids. So we want to get out and talk to people about what it really means, what they might think it is, as opposed to what it really is, and really get kids from all over the country that have a desire to compete at the Division One level, but also to have that ability and honor to serve in the back of their minds, and educate them what that might look like.
And the unique thing about a service academy is you get in, that's checks paid for. It's basically a full ride.
It's more than that. Yeah, I think that's important too. Scholarship dollars are at a premium. People don't know that. Having worked at Wyoming Seminary for 11 years, the kids and families' expectations about the I'll use basketball, football term, the offers that they're going to
Blessed,
get.
blessed to receive an offer.
Humbled and blessed to
Humbled and
receive an
blessed.
offer. Their expectations coming in to what that might look like from a traditional wrestling school, and the reality that I've had some difficult conversations regarding that, right? With high school kids and their families. So the service academy, there is no mystery at Army West Point. If you get in, and if you are enrolling there, you are on a full ride. And that's not just wrestlers; that's everybody there, right? In addition to that, you're getting a stipend, so it's a little bit more than a full ride. You're getting $400 a month to be a student athlete at Army West Point. So I think people kind of know that, but they're a little unclear on it. But I think as scholarship dollars become more and more scarce and more of a premium, that's an option that I think a lot of families are looking at and a lot of families are considering because of the ability to fund an entire education at the premier leadership institution in the world at West Point, by bar none, not debatable.
When we look at the other Division One service academies, of
Mhm.
course, the Air Force Academy, Naval Academy.
Sure.
Of course, we've also got the Coast Guard in Division Three,
Yep.
and then we have military schools like the Citadel, VMI, and
Mhm.
such, Norwich. When you look at the pitch, or well, first of all, is it a pitch to a kid to look at a service academy, or is that something that's got to be kind of in their mind already that they want to be looking in that direction? Because it's not like, hey, have you ever thought about going to Army, and immediately people will conjure up ideas of, I don't want to go to war.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
how
sure.
do you dispel those misconceptions, and what do you have to convince people of otherwise?
Well, I think there's a group of kids who that is something that they've been thinking about their entire lives. So you don't have to. It's kind of similar to when I was at SEM, right? Where there were kids that were going to go to a boarding school and they knew it, and they were just picking which one. And then there were kids that it never entered their mind. And I think that West Point is similar, right? Like there are certainly kids out there who come from military families or have always had that dream to enroll at West Point or to head to a military school. But I think our athletic department is doing a good job with all sports in planting that seed with kids who might not have considered it, right? So yeah, there's a lot of obstacles you have to overcome, and the only way to do that is to be in rooms like Pinnacle, and to be in living rooms with kids who aren't sure what that means, and talk about what that 5 years looks like, and talk about our connection with a world class athlete program, and talk about all the people that are representing the country now. Seeing some of them up here on the poster behind you that are currently enlisted in the United States Army, right? And saying like this is an option, right? This is a way for you to go, that you can come to West Point and have a 9 or 10 year life plan kind of all laid out for you. But you can also have a 9 or 10 year wrestling plan if you take advantage of some of those things. So maybe some people have never considered it, but the better we get at wrestling, the better that Kerry gets at Annapolis, the better that Air Force does. The more kids will be attracted to the athletics part of it, And our football team's doing pretty well too. So the more that people say, "Hey, I can be a successful Division One athlete at a service academy," what does that look like? What does that mean? And then I'm there to say, "Okay, thanks for asking. This is what it looks like," and lay it out for the family and help them understand what those 5 years afterwards might look like and all the advantages that they're going to have.
There's a big talk right now about college realignment and with what's
Yep.
happening, and
Hmm.
one of the discussions is surrounding the American Athletic Conference and Conference USA and such, and Navy gets brought up,
Yeah.
and this is where I'm tying it into Army here. So give it a second.
Sure. Yeah. No problem.
So yeah, sorry, Kerry. The talk about where they would go with this American Athletic Conference for football is, well, Navy wants to be in the West because they want to be playing the Texas schools. They want to, because everybody knows on the East Coast they know Navy, they know
Mhm.
Annapolis, but for a marketing, recruiting, and get the Texas kids' eyes on Navy. What's Army's basic national brand or national type of recruiting pitch to get eyes on Army West Point?
Yeah, I think we just came back football wise from playing in Wisconsin, in a pretty competitive game. If you watched that Saturday night, kind of came down to the wire there. We've got Wake Forest coming into town this weekend, so I
They're
think
having a really good season.
yeah, they're having a pretty good season, right?
Well,
So
the ACC sucks this year, but
well, I mean, Wake Forest is going to be formidable for sure,
Yeah.
right? So without a doubt, playing teams in our major sports from those big time conferences is going to help build our brand. And I think from a wrestling standpoint, headed out to Iowa State this year, wrestling Penn State, which is close, but still, wrestling those schools from those power conferences is going to help build our wrestling brand as well. We're kind of going to be road warriors this year. We're going to head out and try to find great matchups for our kids against the best schools in the country. So I think the athletic department is doing a good job of getting those types of matches or games against those schools that have a national brand, and someone turns on the TV or looks at the score online and says, "Wait a minute, Army just lost to Wisconsin 14-10. Look, they're hosting." And if you've never been to a game at Army West Point, it's probably one of the top 5 places in the world to see a football game.
Have you been to an Army Navy game yet?
I have not. No, and I will not be to one this year either. I'll be recruiting at the Ironman, but it'll be on the list of things to do for sure.
Pretty
Right?
sure we'll probably find a place to watch that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go. I'm not quite locked
Uh-huh.
into it yet,
Yeah.
but it's those are those early December, late November weekends are still great for football. Now,
No
and of
question.
course it kicks off the high school and college season. Now,
Yeah.
you brought up your experience at SEM and Wyoming
Mhm.
Seminary for those who are uninitiated. Became a premier. It's always been a premier boarding school. It's always had a pretty good
Mhm.
athletics program, but
Yes.
and it's had a decent wrestling tradition prior to your arrival and prior to John Gordon's arrival.
Yep.
What switched? What made the change to go? Okay, well, you know what? Nobody's really challenged Blair. Bishop Lynch had a little bit of a run there
Mhm.
in the early 2000s, but what changed and made Wyoming Seminary a wrestling powerhouse?
Well, they were a wrestling powerhouse in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and then there was a little bit of a dry spell. 60s.
Little bit.
Okay, yeah. There were still some good teams and good individuals, but then John got there, and I think that was the beginning of the change because he had Nikki and Adam Healy was at our lower school at that point in time, so he really wanted to win. So he was able to energize some of those guys from the 40s and 50s, his alumni, to say, "Hey, like we're gonna push to make this a national school, and it's gonna help Wyoming Seminary's national brand." And he really kind of assembled a couple people that really helped that initial push to get back in the late 2000s. And then when he left to go down to St. Chris, and I came in, I had just been coming off a Division I job. I had just really kind of that was the peak of Shamrock at that time, where we were getting kids that were going to all the good colleges and things like that, and doing pretty well at the NCAA level. So I think a combination of my experiences as a club coach there, and my experience at kind of helping Pat and Dennis revive the Binghamton thing, that really like created some excitement when I got to SEM, and I made it my kind of mission to pull more people into the fold so that we had a strong alumni base, and motivated the school to get on board, and then just used contacts to continue to bring kids in. And I think day one, kind of came in, and a lot of the kids that were still there were part of the Renaissance. So they had the right mindset, but it was a next level mindset, a little kind of, they had they flip a little bit more of a switch to say, okay, we're not gonna be satisfied to be second. Like we can beat Blair. We can be number one team in the country. So that kind of became our mission and our goal, and we were able to accomplish it a couple times in my time here, which was super rewarding. Yeah.
You've had some interesting building blocks to your job now at Army West Point, both of which you mentioned Shamrock, which was
Sure.
going to be a topic of discussion, but also with Sem, and then the high school background beforehand. So when you're going into these elite rooms like Pinnacle, you had an elite room at Shamrock. When you go into these elite high school programs, you had an elite program at Sem. How much does that help you as a Division I college coach?
I think it helps tremendously. I think that and thank you to Kevin Ward for the opportunity. There's something to be said for having a guy that has had those experience on staff at a Division I level. At Sem, I've hosted dozens of Division I coaches that come into the room, and their familiarity with what a boarding school is, or their familiarity with what a high school club is, it's kind of based on what they were like when they were in high school, right? It doesn't always necessarily mesh. They don't really have that experience dealing with parents or with that age level kid. So I think that's gonna be an advantage for me. Coach Paulson gave me a great introduction last night, and talked about some of the kids that I had coached, which was really, really nice of him. And he and I had been across the mat several times. And as I was sitting there watching practice, I got kind of depressed because I was looking up at the wall and thinking of all the L's that we took to the kids on his flags. But like I said at the end, I said, like, we got our share of W's too, right? So, knowing him as well as I have over the years, going all the way back to like the 1990s, competing against him. That I think gives me a little bit of an advantage to other people who might just know him as, his wrestling accolades. He and I have coached against each other for years and years and years. It's going to be a little awkward first time going into the Blair room, for sure. But Ross is like, come on down, let's do that right away. Malvern, like the same kind of things. These guys who I've competed against over the years, who I now have athletes on our team at West Point. Got some long-term familiarity with a kid like Dalton Harkins, who's a freshman there now, based on the fact that he wrestled every single kid, I think, that was enrolled at Wyoming Seminary in the time that he was at Malvern Prep, right? So I think having those relationships and having been in the trenches with those type of kids and those type of guys will yield some good results for us.
You've also been very prominent and prolific in coaching at the junior and cadet level, or excuse me, 16U level now. Let's get the terminology correct.
Well, we have cadets at West Point, so we're going to keep that term around for our guys.
Okay, you could keep the cadets. Yeah.
But yeah.
But you go to Fargo, and that's actually probably where we got to know each other over the years more so as Fargo. But we got into a ranking discussion one day. I don't even know if it was pre-Twitter. It was like oldthemat.com.
Oh yeah, I remember.
We were looking at using freestyle and Greco for folk style rankings purposes, and back then the rule set was atrocious.
Yep.
And you had said, well, I'm not coaching a guy to win a Greco match for a folk style ranking, or something along those lines. And it was like it kind of changed. It's like, well, wait a minute. Of course, you're trying to win a Greco match with Greco techniques. Stop looking through our international styles with such a folk style lens.
Yep.
How much of your international styles and that background and watching the kids compete helps with being able to identify where a kid can really excel at the next level, even if they may not have had that folk style success yet?
Yeah, a lot. I think so. When I was coaching in New York at the high school level, we didn't have the opportunity to attend the folk style tournaments that we did at SEM. The ones that rankings, but like coaches can go to.
Because just after Nickerson, I think, is when that era is when it all kind of stopped. It's like New York said, no. There's Blair. There's no more.
And very few kids from that era with Troy and JP, Eric Decker. Those.
I remember Canandaigua came down to the Beast.
Yeah,
and,
a few. Beast more so than Iron Man. But we were actually scheduled when I was coaching at Oxford High School to go to the Ironman the year that it was not allowed. I think it was JP's junior year or senior year, right? So we were scheduled to go out there, and then we got word that we were no longer allowed to. So our opportunity to get on anyone's radar was through freestyle and Greco, right? Um, but I always kind of had a problem with that, and I think that kind of came through with that decision or that conversation that you and I had is that um, I'm a big believer if you get to these things and compete and perform, uh, you'll get the attention of the people that you want to get the attention of. So I never really kind of looked at Fargo. Our T-shirts at Shamrock always said, "Summer wrestling makes summer champions," right?
Yeah, because the adage is summer
Yeah,
wrestling makes winter champions.
yeah, I didn't care.
There's truth in that,
I
but
knew that it would take care of itself, right? But my philosophy once that New York State tournament ended when I was coaching in high school was, okay, that's great, but we want you to be more focused on making world team or get on the podium at Fargo, Akron, which was Northwestern at the time. But like those
you're going back.
yeah. So like as soon as you step off the scale and the podium at the NIFSWA, you're getting in the room and you're training for those events, right? So that was before maybe the proliferation of folk style tournaments in the spring. So that kind of started to happen, and kids would go to those as well. But our focus was not, hey, we're going to train really really good freestyle Greco to make you a better folk style wrestler. It was to become a world champion, to become a Fargo champion. So yeah, and it works, right? Because I think the conversation that you and I were having were against we're talking about two very different
I'm
recruits.
trying to think. I don't know. Was it Beckwith? There was somebody that was a middle upper weight from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been Hunter Mays. Might have been. It's in that era.
Yep.
Where I was still doing the rankings at Intermat from 05 to 08. So and I just remember trying to identify, okay, where's the tiebreaker? Because they say two kids had split in folk style, they'd split in freestyle. Where's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I'm looking at, and I remember the point I made was like, I'm not looking at a kid that wins a match 0-1, 1-0,
sure.
1-0 on two step outs as a deciding factor on who the better wrestler is.
100%
step out. But
you
brought the point up as that's the rule set.
Yeah.
That's what we're wrestling. We're not, don't look at it through a folk style lens when it's a Greco match.
And I think that my recollection was we were talking about couple really good New York kids from the North Country, Camp Niche, like guys like that, in comparison to Donnie Vincent.
Right.
And Donnie hadn't had the folk style credentials at that point in time. And the majority of his work was done in freestyle and Greco. And I think the exposure that he got at those tournaments made him a very, very attractive prospect at Binghamton, Virginia Tech, all the schools that he kind of had narrowed it down to at that point in time, even though he had never won a New York State title, even though he had never gone to Virginia Beach and gone to the NHSCAs and done all those
Pittsburgh,
things.
Cleveland,
Sure, he had
spots.
never done any of that, right? And it's still, because we focus so much on, hey, you're going to make a world team. Hey, you're going to go to Northwestern and wrestle in the Fila cadets at that point in time.
Yeah, you
right?
can't say cadet. You can't say. Oh yeah, 16U UW.
It's total name change, right? Yeah. So instead of Fila cadet, it's now UWW 16U. That tournament. So whatever, nomenclature wise, but
I'm
absolutely.
a semantics guy. I got to stick with it. I don't have a choice.
So I think that was the philosophy at that point in time. And I think I've tried to get that to carry over when I was at Binghamton, when I was at Wyoming Seminary, to continue to have that focus after the natural kind of folk style sanction season is over.
One of the discussions I remember we didn't have was about JP and Bubba Jenkins, who were 1-2 depending on the rankings in that era. So
Sure.
that's just kind of interesting on how they both ended up winning national championships.
That's okay.
It was like,
I was telling guys the other day, this is an interesting story. We're going to take guys to East Stroudsburg Open. And I don't know if you remember that time, like East Stroudsburg Open, everyone went to it, right? And I remember freshman year, crazily enough, JP and Bubba met in the wrestlebacks of the East Stroudsburg Open and wrestled like this prolific 20-minute, 7 overtime match as freshmen in college in the wrestlebacks of the East Stroudsburg Open. So like yeah, sure.
Good luck finding footage of that.
Yeah, probably not out there. But they'll both remember it. I remember for sure because they went out of bounds and it was like one of those like 9 o'clock things, and it was like the 17th scramble in a row and like quadruple overtime, and Bubba was just looked at him and be like, "Dude, you're just not trying to get taken down today, right?" And JP was like, "No." It's like, all right, let's go back to the middle and do this again. So just sitting there, watching that, and wow, you can like find stuff like that in East Stroudsburg gym, or maybe Clarion this coming up.
This
with
was
all these
before the
opens.
era when like all the high school kids won it, like the year the
Yeah.
Grajales and the Altons all won it,
Right,
or
exactly,
something like that.
exactly.
Or was it Grajales and Alton met in the final? I can't. It was.
Yeah,
I remember it was
Yep.
like, ooh, there's 4 high school champs in a college open.
Yeah.
This isn't. I mean, those kids were tough, but
Sure.
it's like, eh. But,
it ebbs and flows, I mean, like
like
depending on the
Lou
weekend.
Ruggiero goes one year and doesn't place. That's
Sure.
that's what you're supposed
Yep.
to do. Your high school kids aren't supposed to place at college
Walk
opens.
into college opens,
Or
yeah, no.
well, I mean, if we can even go further down that rabbit hole. Chance Marsteller won a match as a middle school kid, and Sarah
Sure.
McMahon won a match.
Mhm.
No.
No.
But anyway, dialing things back to Fargo, this is one thing that now you're back in New York, and there's few people that I look at when we go to Fargo. There's people that over the years, like, okay, the late Jeff Blatnick, that's New York. Bill Crum, that's New York. Ed, the late Marcia Gould, that's New York.
Mhm.
Scott Green, that's New York.
Yeah.
Rick Gumble, that's New York.
Sure.
Then you were in PA. What that just seems so strange to me. Granted, I mean, you were coaching elite level kids anyway, but it's like that just seems weird to me. What's it like to be back?
Love it. It was weird. And man, PA's got it dialed in, and they've got some great people. In charge, and I had a great experience coaching in PA for a decade, right? And with PA, USAW, PAWF before that. So they really have a great system. And everybody at some point or another is like, oh, your state association, USA State Association sucks. Everybody thinks that. But there are people who are going to come in for the 3 or 4 years. That
I think
their
everybody thinks
kids
that
are there.
about their state
Yeah,
association.
it's like your
There's-
kicker.
There's
it's like
that-
your kicker in football, unless you root for the freaking Ravens.
Dude, you're in
But,
Vikings country. Very
yeah.
sore subject around
Yeah,
these
so-
parts.
so-
I'm not a Vikings fan, but
Yeah.
you go talk to my wife over there. She is not. Don't bring up kickers around her.
Everyone thinks their kicker sucks. Everyone thinks their closer
She
sucks.
still
that are
hates Gary
baseball
Anderson.
fans. Baseball fans all think their closer sucks, and everyone hates their state association for USA.
What about
Wrestling.
quarterback sneaks? What's your opinion on that?
Oof, great call, Sean McDermott. Love him.
Wrestling guy.
Look, yeah, 2-time prep national champ. Bills fan, if you didn't know. Regular season, the right call. Trust your guys. If you're going to win a Super Bowl, you got to get a yard. In the playoffs, he kicks the field goal. I'm confident in that, for sure. But man,
That's by the way, that's John Reenan in the chat needling you on
Yeah,
this one.
for
How many
sure.
heart attacks did you have on Monday night?
yeah.
You almost didn't make it here as a result.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm enjoying watching Bills football again. So, look, in McDermott and McBean, we trust for sure. They've pushed every button right. The Bills have a long history of, even when they were great, struggling against the Titans / Oilers, over the years, going all the way back to when the Jim Kelly era. They would always drop a game in the regular season to them. So
Wasn't that Frank Reich the quarterback that game? Didn't he
that
lead
one
the
we
comeback?
did pretty well, yeah. But that regular season, losses for sure. But
Was it 38-3 at half? Was that what it was?
it
Or
was,
something?
yeah.
Or
That
at
one
point
was
during the game.
That one was heart attack inducing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Man, I don't know how many years ago was that? That's a throwback. I just remember watching that. Going,
93,
no way, yeah.
92, something like that.
I was in middle school.
Yeah, well, but for
I'm
sure,
42 now. Let's do the math, folks.
Yeah, Monday night was pretty low key. It was a great game. I mean, like, I think the 7 lead changes or something like that, and almost 8 at the end. So
Watched it down here on that TV right
yeah,
there. So.
No, I'm okay with the call, and I think it's going to make them better as they go forward. But yeah, so like coaching back in New York is going to be exciting, and I think that for me, the golden age, the era when New York did its best, is when they were good in Fargo. And it wasn't just Shamrock. Like Atwa had a strong club with Joe DeMeo and all those guys that were going out and competing in Fargo. I think we won the Greco junior duels. Had like 10 finalists one year in Greco and Fargo. But the freestyle results were there too. So I think the key to seeing success for New York and getting it to a top tier state would be an investment in freestyle and Greco. And they got great coaches, right? They've got guy. I mean, like Adam Hall's been on the staff every year, and Usolini, like those guys, Chris Harrington are doing a good job. They just need some buy-in from coaches and to kind of change that culture again. Because when I was there, I was fortunate to be in a great culture, of guys who Isaac Ramaswamy was the leader of the team New York at that point in time, and going to camp was a pleasure, and getting those guys to come and work together, going all the way back to like Chad Carrows, Paulie Paquin, like those
Paul
kids.
Paquin. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a name I haven't heard in a while either.
Yeah, those kids were. There was no question in your mind that you were going to Fargo if you were a good New York wrestler. And it's kind of the same way in PA now. I mean, they got good buy-in from the kids, and the best kids are going. And that's the key to any state, is getting your best kids there. And that's something that I know New York is working hard on, and hopefully being back there, get to experience that again too.
Yeah, coming through, and when Virginia was really kind of they had some peaks and valleys with its Fargo performance. But when I was in Virginia coming through, and we'd always look at the the vertical pairing. I'm like, all right, who we get? Oh crap! And we're wrestling Greco. It's like, oh great, Minnesota. You don't want to draw Minnesota.
No.
You don't want to draw New York.
Yeah.
You don't draw PA in anything.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to draw Oregon or Washington.
Yeah, Greco.
And then California kids, you don't know what you're going to get because there's so
sure.
many of them.
Yep.
And this is before Illinois really had its huge push. Before they're like,
Yeah.
you really don't. You're going to get hit with a 2-on-1 immediately.
Yeah.
But I remember kids like I want to say his name is Andrew Grillo. I want to say, and he
Sure. Yep.
gave some of our kids some fits, and then just seeing the names of just like, oh crap, New York,
Yeah.
and it was just. It was brutal.
Yeah.
And
no.
those are, you see that singlet, you're like, crap, we don't want to end up with New York because, again, the one class back in the day, and it was, you never knew how good these kids were because they couldn't get out of the county or they couldn't get out of the
kids
section.
would go out there and it would be like,
How'd you do at states? It's third in the counties.
third in the counties that didn't make it.
Who'd you lose to? Jansen in the semis.
For sure. Yeah.
Dylan Morrison throws a Corey Jansen reference in the chat,
Yeah.
by the way. He was on your show, by the way.
Yeah. No.
Actually, you were
I was on his
show.
Yeah,
that's it.
great young up and coming guy. I really enjoy what he's doing out there.
More wrestling.
Great work. Yeah, absolutely.
That shout out's free, Dylan.
Right there. Yeah. Yeah. No. So I'd love to see that again. I'd love to see New York kids really kind of, value in Fargo, and I think it'll help them across the board. Division I recruitment, their folk style results, obviously, but value in being on those championship teams again will be great for them.
One thing about Fargo is, again, that, as I allude to, you see a singlet, you're going to get somebody tough. When you go into Fargo coaching against a Minnesota kid, because you just talked about all those Pinnacle kids that you've taken some L's over the years against, what is it
Thanks
about
for bringing it up again.
the state culture that will help that? Because, you talk about, what went on in New York, and then, having an Olympic champion like Jeff Blatnick involved is one thing. That also, I know Alexis Porter just loved Jeff and talks about, when, oh, that was a picture of my coach. I mean, I just remember seeing all those things. But and there's New York guys like that everywhere. I mean, I'm not even doing the list justice on how many people that have been involved in it. But here in Minnesota, we got one of the best USA Wrestling state chapters. Wisconsin across the border has a great organization. And what is it from the developmental stages that will help kids that might be on a fringe high school program that it's not just the power kids that go from these states. I mean, you could be from freaking Pipestone, which is a long way from here, and go to Fargo and place, and you don't have to transfer to an Apple Valley or a Shakopee here. I mean, a lot of the good kids, because of clubs like Pinnacle, they're staying home more. But how do you get those fringe kids to develop a love for freestyle and Greco? Not necessarily get them into the elite clubs, but get them into the clubs where you have to say, no, we've got too many kids going to Fargo. I mean, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Consistency in your state organization and exposure. The way we did it then is we ran a great camp, and we were able to tell kids on that fringe that you may not go and place in Fargo, but the camp that you're going to attend before that is going to be better than any other camp that you could spend money on in terms of training partners and coaching. So I think recognizing that Fargo is developmental, like you said right there, is important, right? Because now there's so many other so many other ways for a kid to finish up after his high school season and call himself an All-American and just be done with it and move on and be like, look, I was a blank All-American. Back then, that didn't necessarily.
I mean,
That
it
wasn't
was
necessarily.
Fargo Senior Nationals,
Yep.
meaning Virginia Beach
Yeah.
before it was Virginia Beach, before it was
Yeah, just the senior tournament.
yeah, just the seniors. Usually Cleveland, Pittsburgh was what it
Mhm.
was, and then now the Super 32 is pretty much emerged from a folk style standpoint. It's
Yeah.
like that is
Mhm.
it's probably the single toughest open folk style tournament in
Sure.
the world
Mhm.
because they're
Yeah.
you know. I don't know if you want to talk folk style. I'm sure that the Nadan in Mongolia, that's their folk style.
Yeah,
that's probably
no,
pretty
yeah,
tough.
you're probably right.
I don't
Yeah.
know how many Americans could win that. Foley
Pro-
didn't do so well in that.
I've seen some Mongolian traditional wrestling. So yeah, I'm not sure we're gonna
Yeah.
do too
That's
well there.
folk style, by the way, in
and I
Mongolia.
wouldn't want to see some of our guys in those outfits either.
Yeah, present company included.
Absolutely not. I had the opportunity to put one on and politely declined when the Mongolians
I always
were
joke.
in,
It says the last time I put on a singlet was the last time I put on a
yeah,
singlet.
yeah. When the Mongolians were at SEM, I learned a lot, but I was not putting on that garb for sure. So yeah, I think the answer to your question is consistency and having people understand that. Yeah, you can go and maybe be an All-American at another tournament, but the best thing for your development is to participate in the Fargo process. And then you have to provide that, right? You have to provide that value to them. And that was a lot easier for some states 20, 30 years ago than it is now with so much other competition out there.
I've talked to some elite club coaches around the country, and some of them are like, some years they've got a group of kids that'll come through that Fargo isn't what they want to do, and
Mhm.
when you're a club coach, you kind of got to go where the kids and the people who are paying you to coach them like want to compete. So sometimes there may be I guess we're coming from the situation we both love Fargo
Love
for
it.
development,
Yeah.
but is there situations where some kids probably it may not be in their best interest, or they've been
Sure.
grinding so much, or they need a break because they've done too much of the folk style stuff. They're hitting stride. They've won some big tournaments. They've come off some Virginia Beach titles. They've come off maybe a Scholastic Duels team or things of that nature. So I mean, it's not for everybody, but
I see it more on the other end, right? Like, I would, I in the past, I didn't really care how much they did going into Fargo because I knew I was going to be able to convince them to not compete again until their high school season started. That those days are gone, right? There's nothing. I mean, I fought that fight for a long time. I've taken the fall off, from competition, with like colleges do, by the way. But high school kids are going to compete now. They're going to go to Journeyman. They're going to go to Super 32. They're going to go to all those tournaments. So now the reason to give a kid Fargo off is because they're going to put a ton of miles on their body and cut a lot of weight in the fall.
It used to
so,
be Delaware Fall
yeah.
Classic, Lock Haven Fall Classic,
Yep.
Super 32. That was the 3-weekend
Yeah.
circuit.
And we never went to any of those for the most part. Maybe one kid here or there. We didn't.
I did see Sam Lunas or Mac Lunas wrestle
Yep.
Luke Robertus at the Delaware Fall Classic
Sure,
one time.
yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And we did go down to Super 32 one year. But my philosophy was that's time to heal your body and train. Like again, like I said, like colleges do. No one's competing at the college level until November. So when I was back in the Shamrock days, that was like we'll have a couple practices a week. Why don't you get involved in like a lifting program? But you need that time as a 15, 16-year-old athlete to not be putting miles on your body and cutting weight 3 or 4 weekends in August, September, and October. And those days are gone. So if I was giving a kid advice now, I would have them
Pick one.
weigh which one you're doing. Like, are you going to go all spring? Are you going to go, all spring and all summer? Or are you going to, maybe take some time off there, go to the beach, be a teenager and gear up and wrestle a lot in the fall? Unfortunately, a lot of them are just going straight through, and we'll see how that works out. And a lot of people are making those decisions based on the kids that are at this level, and they're trying to emulate what they're doing, and that doesn't always work. But I think like back to the original question, the reason to take the summer off is because you plan on wrestling a lot in the fall, which is a viable option now with the products that are out there.
we've buried the lead on this entire conversation, so we really want to know what your theory is on chicken wings, because you know
I don't
you
know.
have a specific style of chicken wing, and yes, we are veering wildly off course, but
That's okay.
we can't have a Scott Green conversation without wing talk and Wegmans talking.
Nor should you. No.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
happy
never been to a
to,
Wegmans. I've driven by one when I lived in Pennsylvania.
It's going to take me a minute to recover from that statement. You've never been to a Wegmans,
I've seen one.
and you consider that you've lived a fulfilled life.
I mean,
without
I've
this
been to
experience?
Tashkent, Uzbekistan.
Okay, but no.
There's nothing
Wegmans.
fulfilling about that, by the way. I just wanted
okay.
to I wanted to give you a comparison.
All right. So wings.
Actually,
first.
I've been to 4 former Soviet republics, but I've never been to Wegmans.
Wow.
I used to say Montana. Now I say Wegmans.
As you should. I've never been.
See,
to
now I have to now Google this.
Montana's
I'm going to do
either.
some bad podcasting. I'm going to look up.
Closest Wegmans.
Closest Wegmans.
You're gonna be a while.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do it on a trip. Maybe we can work that out. But
Yeah, I've never been to Army West Point.
So no, that's not a good place. The closest Wegmans to me now, I'm in recovery a little bit, is an hour away.
Ooh, I can get to it's Erie.
Erie? Yeah.
Or let's see, where's that one in Virginia?
Yes.
Is that in? You're telling me that there's one oh Charlottesville. Okay,
Okay.
so a trip to University of Virginia
There you go.
or
Yeah.
a trip to Richmond.
My children's
Hmm.
college choices are theirs as long as they're within 30 or 40 minutes of a Wegmans. Then they can choose, any other
All right.
place in the world where they want to go. My daughter's in near Boston.
Wait,
and
there's a
she-
Wegmans in New York City,
Oh, of course.
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Where Brooklyn at? All right,
Um,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So wings first. I just feel like maybe I'm a little too neurotic about this, but I'm okay with that.
And this comes from
Uh,
being from upstate New York,
Buffalo area, yeah, for sure.
specifically Anchor Bar.
So Anchor Bar and Duff's are wonderful. They're for tourists. So there's better places
which
in
proves
Buffalo.
I've been to Anchor.
To-
In 2006,
Yeah.
I went to Anchor Bar.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, like, you're not going to get a bad wing there, for the most part. Any of the locations in the Buffalo area. So 100%. And they're better than like a tourist trap for some other foods that I've had. Like you go to Pat and Gino's when you go to Philly. There's better cheesesteaks.
There are better
They're-
cheesesteaks.
but they're good. But
if
but
I
Duff's
wanted
Anchor
a
Bar-
cheesesteak and I can drive home when I was covering
Mhm.
Penn or Drexel, I'd go to Gino's because it was wrapped cleaner and I could eat it in the car.
Sure.
No way that's happening at Pat's.
No, so those are legit. But you go to like New York and grab like a Sbarro or something like that for pizza. You're not doing it justice. Like even though they're like
It's like that episode of The Office.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It's like how many famous original Rays are there? By the way,
Yeah.
like 30.
I think so. Yeah.
There's one right across from the New Yorker too.
Mhm.
I remember. I've
But
eaten there
Buffalo wings, which I hesitate to call them, as you know, if you follow me on
because
any social media.
Buffalo don't have wings.
No, Buffalo are actually American bison. They're
Which
not
it's
buffalo.
great out here, by the way.
Yeah,
This is where you're eating it. I'm not eating it in upstate New York.
Yeah. So they don't have wings. That's just a pro tip for everyone out there.
Contrary to
listening.
Buffalo Wild Wings logo, which
uh,
we've
They,
spent a
they,
lot of
they
time.
do
in as
not
well.
have wings, but I appreciate the nod to the city when they do call them Buffalo wings. But in Buffalo, they're wings or chicken wings, right? That's it. And majority of the time, they're hot, medium, mild, or ridiculously hot. And
I like mine extra medium.
extra medium. Yeah, okay, all right, I'll take that.
Shout out Nate Shy on that one.
But I just feel like there's certain ways to do things in the world that are proven and you can't get in any type of trouble. And if you want to have a true experience, you should do things a certain way. And I feel that way about chicken wings. So when someone comes to me and says, "I got this great wing place in town, you should try the garlic parmesan," it makes me want to punch a baby. That's how serious I am about wings. If now, sure, things evolve and people can have whatever tastes for things that they want. But if you're doing wings and it's not Frank's and butter, it's not really wings.
So
No.
so my wing recommendation for you is likely not going to get a visit. Because you're about 10 minutes away from my favorite spot in the Twin Cities.
Okay. All right.
And they're grilled, and they have probably 100 different flavors.
I have enough trouble now when I make them at home putting them in the air fryer instead of oil fryer, but I've also weighed the fact that I don't want to burn down my domicile. So I've stopped using and it's a pain in the butt to clean up. So I use an air fryer now, and I don't feel great about that. Interest in full disclosure, but when you're talking about grilled or smoked or I don't know what other people do with wings. That's what happens behind closed doors is their own business, I guess. But if you're going for the true wing experience, they certainly have to be fried.
Okay, and are you a flats or a drummies guy? That's another great.
Equal.
Okay, see, I'm more of a drummy guy because I want more than me. But you can do
if you
that.
Can't clean a wing.
I can do the whole pinch, pull off, and go.
Yeah.
My wife, I did that. Well, first time I did that in front of my wife, she's like, I was like, at the time I was like 280 pounds. I was like, of course I can do that.
My son can do that. My daughter can do that. You haven't raised your children correctly if they can't clean a wing in one fell swoop.
Still working on my girls liking anything off a bone so far.
Yeah, so. I mean, they have time, right? So
and that those girls include my wife. She's not, so not a huge chicken wing person. Now,
yeah,
another thing,
so Frank's and butter.
Which, by the way, the first time I ever made wings was specifically with Frank's Red Hot and butter.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And don't you had a kid make this mistake. He was come to me, Bobby Hilt, talking to you. Came to me for some wing mentorship. He was going to make them.
Did he put ranch on them?
No, he did not. No. That would have been a fist fight. He bought the Frank's wing sauce instead of just
Frank's Red Hot.
Yeah, so Frank's and butter adjust to your temperature. That's it. Maybe a little cornstarch on them before you fry them. Crisp them up really good, and go. And then the only appropriate. I'm more of a people I never ranch. Okay, hashtag never ranch. But I don't love blue cheese. I eat wings pretty much on their own. But if you are going to garnish, it's absolutely blue cheese, celery and carrots as
not
desired.
much of the carrots. I go with the celery.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And years of eating. By the way, John Reedon's poking the bear again some more. Everything east of the Mississippi sucks. Which is interesting because I'm exactly 1 mile east of the Mississippi right now.
Interesting, yeah.
So, and then Minnesota's ranked third among states that start with the letter M behind Michigan and, well, it's not Missouri, it's Missouri. So he can't even spell that one right, so he's disqualified.
John's disqualified from a lot of different things.
We could have a whole discussion probably on wrestling parents at some, right? Now that you don't coach there anymore.
No, for sure. John has his opinions. He's entitled to them, and he's certainly willing to share them. And they can be as wrong as they are. And we're not going to censor him. And I appreciate you giving him a platform on this interview to express some of those things. But he can continue to shout into his echo chamber all that he wants. He should get back to lawyering at this point in time. There probably should be somebody out there that he should be helping.
Or he could literally go take a hike.
He could do that as well. Too. Yeah. Ask him if he's got like a.
I said John has been a patron of the network for quite a while.
Yeah.
So,
well, he should.
That's why he gets a little bit of a.
There must be a U12 soccer game that he should be at this point in time. So doing his parenting thing instead of putting out misinformed informations about food.
Is John the guy that looks at a traffic accident and goes, "I saw the whole thing. I can defend either side"? Oh no.
Entirely possible.
I heard that joke from a lawyer,
gotcha.
So it's cool. So
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but so we've gotten through the wing thing and we've gotten through the Wegmans thing. I want to dial this back.
One more thing on Wegmans.
Okay. By all means,
just if you're looking to run an organization, study Wegmans. If you're looking to create a guide for your own life or for an institution that you're going to be a part of, look at Wegmans. Look at what Danny has done there. And like I'll paraphrase and boil their mission statement down to brass tacks. But essentially it says like every day you get our best. And I can't think of a one-line mission statement that's more appropriate for any endeavor that you'd want to take on.
Yeah, because there's days we all just want to mail it in.
Every day you get our best, highest ranked, corporations almost every year in year out employee, right near the top tier with employee satisfaction. People love working there. someone like during the pandemic was like, "Oh, you should just Instacart Wegmans," and I was like, "Bite your tongue! Like going there is the experience. Like it's like if there was like a supermarket that was an amusement park, it would be Wegmans. But every day you get our best. Like those are good words to live by.
This is brand loyalty like I've never seen ever,
Um,
ever.
yeah.
Wegmans, if you're watching, why aren't I mean, NIL is I don't know. Is that available for service academies? I mean,
it is not.
What about coaches?
Yes, I believe that
You
it
can
would
you
be,
can
but,
accept an endorsement for Wegmans.
I'd be happy to do it.
I would, even though I'm 1,000 miles away from one.
Yeah, no. Wegman. Every day you get our best. And if you're really trying to figure out what you're doing with your life, look to Wegmans. And take some advice from that store. No question about it. My wife doesn't know this yet, but in retirement, our goal, and I say our without her knowing it as well, is going to be to visit every Wegmans franchise in
Which isn't
in
as
North America.
cumbersome as that guy who was eating a Big Mac at like every McDonald's. in
No.
the country or something. How he's still alive is beyond me
Yeah,
as well.
no, there's a lot more McDonald's than there are Wegmans for sure. But every Wegmans, that's
I mean, there's McDonald's in some supermarkets.
yeah, that's not in Wegmans though.
We got a Hy-Vee here that's actually opened up. I can't compare it to Wegmans, but it's got there's a bar in here. There's like 40 craft beers. There's like a Wahlburgers. There's like whoa, this is the food's pretty good. The brands are okay, and then whoa, I could spend all day here.
Yeah.
There's a shoe store. I mean, in
That's
Spring Lake
Wegmans.
Park, Minnesota, there's a DSW inside
Mhm.
a Hy-Vee next to the bar with 40 local
Yeah, I
craft
think they're all
stores.
learning from Wegmans, who was one of the kind of
Yeah,
originals in
good to
terms
know.
of having all that different stuff, the ready to order.
So if I cover
all that.
UVA or Edinburgh, I'm looking at.
You going to Wegmans? Yeah.
I don't think I'm getting close to Charlottesville this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, look,
I might make it to Blacksburg. I got to work on
figure
that.
figure out a way to get yourself to a Wegmans. You'll feel better. about
And when I go to Newark for the Garden State Grapple, I'm going to be a little too far from Brooklyn
it.
for me to do that with my family.
Jersey's got some Wegmans. Yep, for sure.
Good to
Yep, the
keep
closest
an
one to West Point is in Jersey.
eye. Oh,
So
what
yep.
exit? No.
Yeah.
Now, lastly, I want to dial this back to wrestling a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
because I actually skipped over this thought, and I want to go back and I want to look at the coaching staff right now. Kevin Ward, Joe D'Angelo, Jesse Delavecchia, and yourself.
Yeah.
Only one of those guys has stood on a podium at the Division I championships.
Mm-hmm.
And guy like Kevin Ward, his chronicle, his actually, I was on Kevin's recruiting trip when he was at Virginia Tech.
Mhm.
I was there that weekend. Then he goes to Oklahoma State, doesn't place, and then has a really good career at Division II level, coaching Ouachita Baptist to a trophy in just I think the program's fourth year.
Sure.
Then, boom, he's gets the job at Army West Point. And it's like, okay, we look at the world of wrestling credentials and coaches and whatnot, and there's even somebody out there right now who faked their credentials and got a freaking job. That's another issue entirely. Get rid of that guy. And what you look at it, you're like, well, what does that guy know? This is not me saying this. This is the what's that guy know about making me better if he's never done that?
Yeah.
Explain Kevin's coaching philosophy, how that works with you.
Yep.
Joe's got some chops. I mean, I think he
For
did
sure.
pretty well at the junior college level before going to NC State, if I'm not mistaken.
He
And then, Jesse Delavecchia was one of the most wicked top wrestlers, underrated New York guys. So you've got some New York guys there. So it's a pretty good New York staff, except for Kevin.
Yeah. Well, Joe's North Carolina. But been up to New York coached at Hostra.
Yeah, he's
some
done the
JUCO
rounds
stuff,
in New
but
York.
yeah, for sure. So I think that's why I'm there, because I think Kevin believes that I bring something to the staff that they don't have, and I think that's why I'm there, because I respect and appreciate that about him. He has been around incredible programs, obviously. Wrestling, he's learned a lot from having wrestled for John, and being a part of that. And I think that, the answer to that question is, how many staffs do you see that are four versions of the same guy? And what is different about their approach that's going to round you out as a student athlete, that's going to give you all the skills that you need? Do you have four technicians on your staff? Do you have 4 guys who stood on the podium on your staff? Like, what's different about each of them that's going to make the student athlete experience one that you want to have? So I think, from a coaching standpoint, like, no one is going to come to be coached by me because of my wrestling accolades, because they're non-existent, right? But I think it's going to do a quick Google search and see some of the athletes that I've taken to success at the high school level, what they've gone on to do in college, what they've gone on to do in the world and Olympic level, that uh, they can say, oh, yeah, maybe that guy didn't have the best high crotch in the world, but look at the guys who he's coached and look at what they've accomplished.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't teach a good one.
For sure, right. And I think the well-roundedness of our staff is going to be really appealing to some student athletes and their families at this point in time. I'm 51 years old. My kids are going to be in college soon. I can devote 18 hours a day to coaching if I so choose. Right, I can get on a plane and go to Minnesota for 3 days, come back, and my daughter's away at college. My son's a senior in high school. They're like, "Oh, hey, you were gone," where K Dub's got 3 little ones, so that's a different experience for him. But he, look, we don't take enough guys from the lower levels that have shown that they can run a program without the resources that a Division I coach has.
Is this why
and
you
say,
think Ned Shuck was there prior
Yeah,
to him?
100%. Yeah, no. Like, sure, like, yeah, did Kevin coach at a Division II school? Yeah. Did he get the job done at that level where he was probably doing the laundry and he was his own SID?
It was him and Chewy.
And right, like how, and then all of a sudden you've been doing it that way for years, and you walk into a situation where you are better resourced, and you're like, oh, this is great. So me, being 51, K Dub being 39, Joe late 20s, and Jesse just getting out of college. You got 4 people at very different phases of their life, very different experiences, very different backgrounds.
Jesse in his late 30s, even though he just got out of college.
Well,
so.
there's a lot of them out there, right? But
Guilty.
Just getting out of school, like still on the mat every day. Joe still on the mat every day. You've got a variety. You should look at your leadership in any place that you are and say, is there some balance? Are there 4 guys that bring different skill sets? And I'm not sure you can say that about a lot of places. I think there's a lot of places where you got 4 versions of it's like Multiplicity with Michael Keaton, right?
Wow, we used to watch that.
Yeah, it's
repeatedly
like
in college.
4 different versions of the
Bye,
same
Steve.
person, and by the time you get to the 4th version, that's not necessarily what you wanted. So do you have a coaching staff that has a variety of different experiences, a variety of different perspectives, that have been around a little bit at some different places and learned at each of those different places, and then come in and trying to mesh those things together? So I think that's what Kevin was looking for someone who's going to bring something to the coaching staff that they didn't already have, and I think that's why I'm there. And that's awesome, because there's not a lot of, Kevin always says, Division I coach. He's like, there's more United States senators than there are Division I wrestling coaches, right?
Yeah, but there's more Virginia high school state champions than there are All-Americans.
That's true too. But so it's a pretty exclusive job, and you gotta love it and value it. And I feel the same way about my job, associate head coach. There's not a lot of them around, and there's not a lot of them who are 51 years old who are coming off a stint coaching high school and never had any wrestling accolades. So pretty proud of that. And my job is to say, hey, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to contribute. Here's what we're going to add. We're going to get better. And maybe you should consider.
Yeah, you're
looking
not
at
a
coaches
director
like
of
that.
ops or recruiting coordinator. You're bona fide.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe there should be more. Maybe that's, I don't want to throw in a dreaded, like, quote unquote #grow wrestling, but maybe that's a key to growth, right? Maybe, having jobs like this accessible to guys that have a very different experience with it will keep people engaged in the sport for a little bit longer.
All right, you've kicked my interest up on a tangent. I
Let's
wasn't
go.
going to go this way.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's talk the Iowa women's wrestling coaching position.
Uh-huh.
So this is one of these situations where the message board public, and I will point out the Hawkeye report here. There's a list of people they want,
Mhm.
and everything I'm hearing is that the discussion center is this position should or in theory should be a woman head coach,
Mhm.
and people are going to go looking at, well, we've got, of course, Terry, of course, being the national team coach
Sure.
and being an Iowa grad. And then his brother, well,
Mhm.
just because you're his brother doesn't mean you're immediately the same in terms of that. I mean,
Mhm.
we know we've got some great brothers that are All-Americans and some great brothers that are, driving a school bus somewhere. But when we look at the importance of the position in Iowa
Mhm.
with the women's program, I personally feel it should be a woman's coach.
Mhm.
Meaning a female coach.
Mhm.
But again, giving that opportunity to somebody that may not have some accolades, or somebody that has accolades that may not have a coach. Where's the balance, do you think? If you're going to be the AD and hire for this type of position, what are you looking at? Because I believe, I'm going to tell you my opinion first,
Sure.
is I believe it should be somebody that's competed at that level, that's coached at that level,
Mhm.
and as a female. And that really shrinks your pool
Sure.
of possibles.
Mhm.
But also is if you get a name,
Yep.
okay, where's the coaching experience? Problem is women's wrestling hasn't given that many coaches that many experience, because a lot of the women's coaches are men hires.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I feel like we're in this kind of catch-22 chicken and egg with hiring a high-level women's coach for a high-level Division I opportunity.
I feel like this is a good question for me and a good question for me to answer, because it's not Iowa, but we went through the same discussions when we hired Aaron Vandiver for Wyoming Seminary. And we placed a tremendous amount of value on hiring a female coach for the female program. And, I mean, obviously we kind of had the pick of the litter, like you said. There's a few people in there, and Aaron had just come off. She had the assistant coach at 2 straight Olympic Games. She'd kind of worked with Terry for a decade. So that was
Been on the ladder, been a national team member,
100%.
world
Yeah,
teamer.
all of the things that you were talking about needing to check a box were there. So this proliferation of growth in women's wrestling is tremendous. But there's going to be some growing pains too, right? So are there enough coaches to fill the positions that are high level coaches that can get that job done? How many schools are going to combine it, have the men's coaches, assistant men's coach also coaches the women's?
I feel
There's-
like
there's gonna
part-time
be
coaches get
some-
part-time results.
There's going to be some of that as we go through the growth, but I feel like Iowa's such a high watermark. And I know this conversation will be different in 10 years, right? Because the girls that are competing and finishing up their careers or just finished up their careers, I think the Iowa job is the first of many. And they'll stick around the sport longer because they know they can make a career out of it.
Yeah, Sacred Heart hired a women's coach.
For sure. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
Mark Cody, the director of wrestling at Presbyterian, did have a women's coach.
Yep.
Obviously he had a husband-wife team before
Yeah.
they went somewhere else. But it's been important for at least two of the
Yeah.
first two Division I programs had
100%.
women's coaches.
Yeah, and I think that as we get further into it, there's going to be more demand, but there'll be more supply too. So hopefully it'll encourage people to stay around after they're done competing and stay involved in the sport, because they have opportunities. And look, like, are you going to get a good? Is the female coach option going to be better than the male coaching option every single time at this point in time? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But certainly schools should look to hire who they think is the best fit for their program. But I think that I don't have any inside knowledge or anything like that too, but I think that a lot of the people at Iowa are probably looking at that, asking the same questions and saying, yeah, like, it would be great if we could get a high level female coach for this program. Now, will it go that way? Or will it be better options for them? Yeah, it might, but like I said, I think that's the first domino to fall. And the more that you see programs popping up and hopefully being at institutions comparable to Iowa in terms of stature and in wrestling culture, I think you'll see more and more female coaches in those positions.
Yeah, and a lot of the coaches are coming from programs that, I mean, there's it's not like when you're hiring a men's coach, oh well, he was a great assistant. Like let's use Pat, for example, and Dennis. Dennis is a head coach at Hofstra.
Yeah.
He had a really good career. He had a couple different spots, but he was really a lot of it really kind of spread his wings under Pat. And then and then Hofstra opens up, and so there's some people's like, oh well, we need to get this, and this. And I was like, you want a guy that's going to care about your program.
Yeah.
You're going to, I'm sorry, John Smith is not going to take the Hofstra job.
Sure.
Dennis Papadopoulos is going to give everything he's got for that
sure.
job. So that's one thing I think we get
Absolutely
ahead of ourselves and we want a 4-time All-American. Oh, well, we need to get Logan Stieber, or we need to get, it's like all these names that are never, they're not gonna go to Duquesne. I mean, when it had a program. I mean, it's like they're gonna stay where they're gonna have those resources. So again,
Pat lived in someone's basement at Sacred Heart, did the same thing at West Point. He worked his way up through it, and he made himself into, I consider one of the top 3 or 4 head coaches in the country, right? So like it's not as easy as people think it is on a message board or on social media, where you're like, oh, let's just go get this guy because he's got great,
they've forgotten about
wrestling
Pat's college
athletes.
credentials at this point, right?
Right. No one knows. No one cares.
Yeah.
And
Oh, you wrestled for John.
Yeah.
They just assume that okay,
yeah, and it's my second Okie State guy that I'm working under, coming off of Pat and working under Kevin. So those guys obviously learned a lot there about coaching, and then took the stuff that they loved and incorporated in what they did, and then picked up stuff for Pat from like Mark Cody, Chuck Barbie, and stuff like that along the way. But man, like Kevin doing what he did, at the Division II level, that should be something that we look at and say, this is a guy who is an executive, and can lead, and I mean,
kind of beat that in the Leadership Academy drum the NWCA likes to do. You got to be CEO.
I don't think that it's a mistake that he's having success at West Point, which values leadership, and the whole thing's a leadership lab, right? And they weren't necessarily going to always be looking for those credentials. They understand leadership better than maybe any institution that I've been associated with.
The only thing missing here at the bar is a couple beers and some chicken wings, but we'll let you wrap up.
Early.
Continue doing your. It's still. It's actually across. It's noon on the East Coast.
Okay,
it's still 11:15 here, but the Speakeasy fridge may have a cold, sudsy, bubbly or fizzy water for you. But Scott, welcome again. The only other Division I coach that's been in this building has been Chris Pendleton when he was at Arizona State. He actually was walking right down the street when he was recruiting Lance Bennick, which Totino Grace is quarter mile from here.
Gotcha.
So I'm in that. Marty Morgan lives about a mile from here, and then Road Warrior Animals alma mater is Warrior Animals alma mater is my school district. So
interesting.
My kids will go to the same high school as Road Warrior Animal, the late Road Warrior Animal.
There you go. Well, I'm out here for a couple days, and I'm looking forward to getting in some people's living rooms and really enjoyed my time here, which is maybe better than being in the living room and the Speakeasy.
It's in a Speakeasy, and you got attacked by a golden doodle.
Yeah, I did indeed. Yeah.
Hazel went after. By the way, all girls in this house. So my dog, of course, is a girl too. So.
Yeah.
Except for me.
Little testosterone. Okay. Sure. It's good to be in the man cave deluxe here, I will call it.
There's a lot of stuff in here that we're just scratching the surface. But Scott, appreciate you coming on in and making time.
Okay, I appreciate you having me. All right.